Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of You're More Than Your MS. Well gang, I'm really excited about this week's episode. I binge watched a series I didn't expect to like, but it was awesome. But first, did you get a chance to watch any of the movies I reviewed for you last week? Of the ones I reviewed, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was my favorite. First series I'm going to review for you is Everything Sucks. It's a Netflix original. This show takes place in the 90s, but so reminds me of what it was like growing up in the 80s. Set in 1996, the teenagers in high school's AV Club and Drama Club come together to make a movie in their hometown of Boring, Oregon. The opening minutes of Netflix's new high school comedy, Everything Sucks, includes the mighty Boss Tones, The Impression That I Get, and Blues Travelers Run Around on the soundtrack. Slap bracelets, troll dolls, and debates about both the merits of Star Wars Special Edition's re-release and whether any of the stories told in Alanis Morissette's Ironic are actually ironic. Ironic pops up again in the second episode, where a few characters recreate famous moments from that music video, and the ones of Oasis's Wonderwall and Blind Melon's No Rain. In case you haven't noticed by now, Everything Sucks is set in the 90s and wants there to be no confusion about the fact. In that way, the series starts out following the lead of one of its two main characters, Luke O'Neill, freshman, in an Oregon town that abruptly named Boring. Pint-sized, irresistible, and a lifelong film nerd, he's convinced that high school will be his opportunity to shine and goes to extreme, very public lengths to impress his new crush, sophomore and fellow AV Club member, Kate Mesner. Both the show and its leading men can be a bit much at first, with the series' constant period references and needle drops, and with Luke's inability to actually read Kate, who has many good reasons to not want to date him or to be noticed at all, since she gets enough grief for being the daughter of Boring Principal Ken. In time, though, the show turns out to be erroneously appealing. Not Freaks and Geeks level, but much closer than it has any business being, by instead taking its cue from Kate, who draws praise from a classmate for never trying too hard. You just exist. You don't have to be anything for anybody. Created by Ben York Jones and Michael Mohan, Everything Sucks starts out so hyperactive and reference-laden, it's as if the show isn't itself has dunked an entire six-pack of Surge. Everything is loud and confrontational. Many of the characters, including Luke's nerdy buddies, McQuaid and Tyler, as well as theater club king and queen, Oliver and Emmeline, come across as the broadest of the types, and every situation revolving around Luke's pursuit of Kate seems designed to generate maximum discomfort. Operating at that level, the show might wear out its welcome quickly, despite the charismatic and constant constraining work of Winston and Odd Squad alumni Kennedy. He's preternaturally confident beyond his years and stature, while he's quiet and still and looks like she might melt into a puddle if anyone stared at her for more than a few seconds. Both leads are terrific. But once the first few episodes have established the main story threads, Luke's pursuit of Kate, a feud between the AV and theater kids that Luke attempts to squelch by teaming up to make a 50s-style sci-fi movie starring Oliver and Emmeline, a character contemplating a step out of the closet. Everything Sucks manages to calm down and, like Kate, just exist, and it's much more endearing in that mode. A lovable mix of elements from a lot of Netflix other recent series like Stranger Things and The End of the Effing World, Big Mouth, and more, that also manages to feel just distinctly like its own thing. Characters who start out seemingly like obvious glitches are, with one or two exceptions, gradually given hidden depths. Tyler has a reading disability, which is mostly treated as an understood fact of his life, but which creates tension when he has trouble remembering his lines for the movie. Emmeline goes from mean girl to someone with clear and well articulated vulnerabilities. The coming out story is presented in a thoughtful and sensitive way, while also turning certain sections of the show into a romantic farce because only a few people know that's really what's really going on. Kate's given a very understandable reason for her constant look of terror, and in time proves to be much stronger than she realizes, and much more perceptive too. In something of a mission statement moment for the show, she scolds Luke, who's been raised for years by a single mom, flight attendant Sherry, while only knowing his estranged father Leroy as a figure on a series of confessionals VHS tapes, who prioritize his own pain over everyone else's, forcefully reminding him, "You're not the only one having a hard time." That level of empathy extends to the parents too. Other high school shows like My So-Called Life and The OC have done well by making the adults into complex and appealing figures. But this may be the first where the most sympathetic characters is the principal. The creators and Patch Daras do wonders at showing how widower Ken tries to give Kate and all the other students the space they need at the precarious age, even though his own life is crushingly lonely. Perhaps the season's most joyous moment involves Ken, having just experienced an unexpected burst of good fortune, bouncing into the house while singing Deep Blue Something's Breakfast at Tiffany. By this point, it's not just nostalgic pandering, but a moment deeply rooted in character and story. Yes, it's another one-hit wonder that instantly signifies that decade, but it's also the song that this guy, at this moment in both history and his own life, would absolutely attempt to knock out too. It's a treat, so ultimately, Everything Sucks. The next series that I binge watched recently is called Episodes. It's a comedy. You can watch it on either Amazon. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. Matt LeBlanc plays a fictional version of himself in this comedy about a pair of British TV show creators who discover, to their dismay, that Matt has been cast in a remake of their show. American TV has been remaking British shows for years, most notably The Office, even All in the Family originated across the pond as the BBC's Till Death Do Us Part. And this month, 3 new Americanized British series have came over to Showtime's Shameless, MTV Skin, Sci-Fi's Being Human. Occasionally, the translation works beautifully. Shameless being a case in point, but often as Showtime's clever new comedy episodes, not so new now, describes the remake is a mess, a bloody mess. Episodes is a breezy, knowing satire about one of those messes when married British TV writer Sean and Beverly Lincoln moved to Hollywood to adapt their award-winning sitcom for a network president. Presto changeo, the classy Lyman Boys, about a variably dexterous headmaster at a boarding school, turns into Pucks, starring Matt LeBlanc as a hockey coach, and the lesbian character turns into a straight blonde librarian who's lusting after the coach. The Lincolns have to shut up and dumb down. In short, they got Californiated. Episodes used to run on Sundays at 9:30 was a familiar goof on the vulgar side of Hollywood, as the Lincolns compromise their values for the network's soulless staff, including the self-absorbed Carol and Myra, the head of comedy, who always has a sour expression on her face. Created by American sitcom writers David Crane and Jeffrey Coward, the show covers a lot of the same territory we've seen on other cynical showbiz send-ups, including 30 Rock, Entourage, Action, and the comeback from LeBlanc's fellow friends, alumni Lisa Cardo. But Episodes is nonetheless excellent for being familiar. It offers a great cast and some very tart scripting. Each of the season's 7 half hours is a little sliver of pleasure. LeBlanc is perfect as he plays a version of himself in the manner of Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's likable one minute and manipulative the next, talking about how he'll win a custody hearing with the help of his friends, celebrities. I'll just give the judge a couple of how you doings, he brags, and he is constantly willing to smock his own history as a catchphrase slinging, well-dimensional sitcom character saying about Pucks, I need this to be a hit, or at least something you can't make fun of on a talk show. LeBlanc plays the links off each other to his own disadvantage, seducing Sean in his slick car and his accessible, beautiful wife, proving that Beverly being pushing her political correct buttons. Britt's Megan and Greg are remarkable as their characters fall into LeBlanc's trap despite their intelligence. They expertly and happily bat their lines back and forth each other. Yep, it's hockey pucks. The next series that I have been watched. Actually, this is my third time binge watching this series. You can catch episodes of it on Amazon Prime. The it's Fringe. The FBI teams up with a formerly institutionalized scientist who was performing experiments on the fringe of real science and his son to investigate weird crimes that are seemingly part of a larger pattern and may be connected with a global company called Massive Dynamics. With its paranormal occurrences, ever autumn aesthetics, extraneous flashlights used at crime scenes, odd bursts of humor, and constant friction between faith and doubt. Fox's sci-fi serial Fringe just might be a whole. It's a great show. That was the synopsis for it. FBI agent Olivia Dunham is investigating something called the Pattern, a series of worldwide unexplainable phenomena such as toxins that dissolve people's skin or a battalion of insta-soldiers designed to grow from newborn to fighting age in 3 years. Joining Olivia, whose recently deceased lover was somehow linked to the pattern, is sarcastically young Peter Bishop. The reluctant Bishop has been recruited to watchdog his loopy, mad fringe science dad, Walter, who has spent the last 17 years in a mental hospital. Executive producer J.J. Abrams, known for twisty, myth-intense shows like Lost and Alias, is under-recognized for his jeweler's eye at casting. The lead trio here is expertly balanced. Jackson leads his pattern-heavy, dubious son a core of decency. Tarv alters between steely action and wavering self-doubt, and Noble plays his kooky genius with the daftness of Christopher Lloyd and the diction of Fraser Crane. Dashing around a subterranean lab at Harvard, his pure delight is strangely adorable amidst all the gloom. He plays off childish outbursts that could be cloying on the wrong actor. Excellent. Let's make some LSD, he thrilled, when one of his mind-warping experiments is okayed. Strong actor surround the trio, including The Wire's Lance Reddick as Olivia's somber boss, Oz's Kirk Exarvido as her old FBI buddy, and Blair Brown as a manipulative executive at the ominous, world-dominating company, Massive Dynamics. What do we do? Reads a billboard. What don't we do? Massive Dynamic definitely does not have its hands clean when it comes to the pattern. Whatever that will ultimately mean, here hopes Fringe keeps a tight, freaky focus rather than getting too ensnared in its own grand themes. Audience are veering away from time-consuming, mucky mythology, and this fear of commitment could explain why the drama has yet to make a ratings splash. Heavy-handed conspiracies, who did what and why, are something less interesting than the other outcomes. Splatters of blood on the window of an airplane, with every passenger inside gruesomely jellified. A nurse screaming as she sees what emerging from the belly of a panicked woman who swore she wasn't pregnant. These type of things are perfectly creepy all on its own. So, I've watched Fringe several times and would love for you guys to check that out. The next series I'm going to talk to you about is Sanctuary, which also can be caught on Amazon Prime. Stem cell gene therapy transplants, cloning, the very meaning of the word humanity, changes daily in the modern world. But there is a deeper, a darker side to the evolutionary of mankind, a truth only a few brave souls are willing to face. There are monsters loose in the world, and they are the key to the future of our race. From the guy who brought you Stargate Atlantis and Stargate SG-1 comes Sanctuary, sci-fi's first and possibly the world's first green screen series. No, that doesn't mean that no monsters are killed in the shooting of this show, nor does it mean that the cat crew was forced to drive hybrids. What it does mean is that all the sets are virtual. In other words, the actors are not really sitting in rooms or running down alleys. But unlike, say, a video game, they'd never know it. They look that good. Given that, let me also say that virtual settings don't make up for virtual plots. Not that Sanctuary doesn't have its moments, and those moments might prove to be fast and furious after tonight's. After you catch the first episode, when the show goes to a more manageable 1 hour format, I did find myself trying hard to stay focused for the extended premiere, though I must say the plot revolves around forensic psychiatrist Will Zimmer, who is a rebellious, quirky outsider in the police department. He sees things others don't and all that. When he's brought in to investigate the murder of 2 cops, he knows that the cops were not shot, but sucked. The kids got tentacles. His investigation accumulates in his being invited by Dr. Helen Magnus to visit a special place called Sanctuary, which is like the ASPCA for monsters who roam among us. Magnus has devoted a few lifetimes to saving and nurturing the creatures. She gets them off the streets where they kill and maim, although sometimes by autonomic mechanisms when frightened. Think skunk stink and porcupine quills, but in giant flesh eaters. The monsters who live in Sanctuary are Magnus's patients, and some are even her employees, such as one guy who is a dead ringer for the gecko caveman. Her fearless sidekicks include her own platinum test 20-something daughter Ashley, the aforementioned Geico caveman, and a techie. Of eminent importance is the gang is finding the boy with the tentacles and getting him into the sanctuary, while fighting off the residential evil guys. John Druitt. Somehow, Chernobyl and Jack the Ripper are also involved. All that's missing is Charles Manson. The monsters are first rate and virtual settings are very cool. The acting is excellent. Why I was fighting fatigue while watching, I can't say. Maybe it was the MS. The next series, I've watched this before, and binge watched it again while I was getting my Acrevus infusion. You can catch it on Hulu or on Amazon Prime. It's called Misfits. It is a British series brought to the U.S. A storm gives Nathan Kelly Nathan, Kelly, Curtis, Alicia, Simon, and Gary, who have been sentenced to community service superpowers in this British series that's made its television debut in the US on the Logo channel. Only someone with a bizarre superpower could guess even when any given British television series will turn up in the United States and what channel it will be on when it does. 6 months and BBC America, a year, and PBS. Perhaps one of the superpowered characters on Misfits has the gift needed to explain why that quirky series has taken so long to come across the Atlantic and why its America home ended up being Logo. In any case, the show, first seen in Britain in 2009, now stands ready to serve up those in their humor, gloomy television, youthful characters. The series involves 5 young people who acquire superpowers after being caught during a peculiar storm. These are not your Disney Channel style peppy model citizens. When the storm catches them, they are on a community service work detail, having earned their orange jumpsuits with an assortment of bad behavior. It takes much of the premiere for them to realize that they have been transformed in how Simon can become invisible, Curtis can rewind time, Kelly is telepathic, and Alicia causes anyone who touches her to go wild with sexual desire. A superpower not in most handbooks. Oh, and Nathan doesn't figure out by the end of the first episode whether he has a superpower, which gives him some much needed humility after the first few minutes of the show establish that he is a monumental jerk. The premiere has so much premise setting work to do that it doesn't really convey how adamantly unconventional this series is. Those 5 are Ninja Turtles having superpowers doesn't necessarily bring out their inner heroes. Their most immediate concern once they discover their powers isn't saving the world, it's concealing a killing in which they were all involved. America fans who have already found Misfits on Hulu, where it has been available for some time now, known that this show is often more drama than comedy, although a droll humor runs through it. In the premiere, for instance, Kelly hears the thoughts not only of her companions, but also of a rather raunchy dog as it licks her face. The attempt to be both a comedy and a drama doesn't always work. Some of the storylines can have a desperate feel, but Misfits has enough going for it to snare aficionados of the odd. Well, my friends, that brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed everything and will get a chance to check out the things I reviewed for you, and I hope you will return for even more reviews next week. I would like to thank MS&Me Radio and my listeners for giving me the chance to share giving me the opportunity to share my passions with you. Good night, and always remember, you're more than your MS.